SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
What's going on there, Rhino?
Oh, not too terribly much, but apparently this morning I forgot how to tell time.
What happened?
I got up here to the studio about an hour and 15 minutes before I usually do, and didn't realize it until Dixon walked by and he goes, What's got you up here so early?
You don't have a clock or alarm, phone broke or what?
I just misread the clock, just didn't even look at the first part of it. I got to get in the shower. And then got in the shower and got on the way to work, and it's like, why does traffic seem so different?
Well, better to be early than late, I guess, as they say. And we're all strapped in, ready to go. We got State Treasurer David McRae coming on the program later on to discuss the unclaimed property initiative. He's done a great job with that, returned a bunch of it, and we'll dig into that. And then we got Caleb Sailors joining us. He's from SuperTalk Mississippi News. He'll give us a rundown of all the news from across the Magnolia State. I want to thank Dave for filling in for 4 days while I've been gallivanting in Las Vegas. I got to tell you, I had a blast. I really felt like I had turned the clock back to the old days of being in the technology industry. There's just so much excitement, so much enthusiasm, so much optimism about what is no doubt transformational technology, that being artificial intelligence. And I know for most of us, we think about that as being ChatGPT and Gemini and Grok and some of the other just chat tools. And most of us, I dare say, or have some experience in just throwing a query, a question at the tool and then sitting there while it does a little ciphering and comes back with this incredible response. It's no doubt powerful. But what struck me is it looked to me, I know this may sound unusual to some folks, I felt just like I did 40-something years ago when the PC was introduced, that there was so much excitement around this, but an entirely new industry has been launched. That, I think, is something we overlook. So what we think about it are these tools we as users interface with. But we, I guess, really don't have any insight into the massive amount of technology and the companies that make it behind the scenes. And so I was with Representative Hank Zuber, Representative Kevin Horan. They both had some interest in learning more about the technology and how to deal with it in government. Various objectives there. And then Craig Ogeron, he runs Mississippi Information Technology Services. Obviously, made sense for him to attend as well. And so we had dinner Monday night. Great discussion. But here's probably my key takeaway. I escorted Representative Zuber into the exhibit hall. So it's at the MGM, which is a gigantic property, if you guys have never been there. 8,000 attendees. And I escorted him into the exhibit hall, which was open daily. The conference was Monday through Wednesday, 7 a.m., and then a reception each night from either 5 to 6 or 6 to 7. Keynote speeches in the morning, breakout sessions throughout the day, and then the exhibit hall open. There were 400 exhibitors. 400! Each of them with some connection, some products and or services related to artificial intelligence. 400. And so, Rhino, I took a photo of the board that showed the sponsors. Not all exhibitors, just the sponsors. And it's little bitty logos on this board because there's different levels of them right now. You got one board for the big-time sponsors. NVIDIA, one of those. Cisco, one of those. Dell, the big household names, right? HP, Supermicro. I mean, these are big-time public companies. But next to it was one that just featured logos of the sponsors at the 3 or 4 levels they had. And I would say there's probably 100 of them on that board. And when I took Representative Zuber, just kind of stood inside the hall when we opened it, I said, I just want you to look at how massive this thing is. 400 companies here and wall-to-wall people, right, walking around. I said, here's what we got to fix. Not a single one of these companies is based here in Mississippi. Now, this is brand new, evolving, burgeoning industry. That's what we got to fix because...
Which means, according to the rule of thumb, Mississippi will have startups in 5 to 10 years.
Right. And we're missing this window, right? And that's the point. And I'm not being critical here. I want to point that out. I'm not saying...
I was a little bit.
Okay. Well...
Because that's the way the world views the Magnolia State.
That's exactly right.
At a bare minimum, we're 5 years behind.
And I've been dealing with that perception my entire career because I've traveled
there are some
the country.
people that say we're 50 to 100 years behind. Those people are just crazy.
But that's right.
There is a kernel of truth in that stereotype that we're 5 years behind.
And it doesn't mean that we're intellectually inferior. That's not the point here. But there are people right now graduating from our fantastic universities that have these ideas that are going to go somewhere else and create these companies. And what we so desperately need here are corporate headquarters. I can't emphasize that enough. It's great to have companies that are located elsewhere, make investments in Mississippi and hire people and spend a bunch of money. No doubt. That's fantastic. But to move the needle, what would move the needle is a 10-story office building that represents a corporate headquarters where every person in there makes more than $250,000 a year. I'm just telling you the truth because that means they're out buying $750,000 houses and they're buying cars and they're eating in the restaurants and just spending money throughout the economy. That's what props up the quality of life. It's just a fact. And so Representative Zuber never really thought about that. I said, yeah, look in this room. Find one. And so as we walked through it, Rhino, and I would invite him to stop, and I would engage in a conversation. Now, there's no doubt of these 400 companies, there's a whole bunch of them that do the same thing. It reminded me so much of how all these other eras of technology have evolved, where you got a lot of people that enter it, and look, it's survival of the fittest, as they say. It's brute force free market. I love it. And somebody's going to win in that game. And I'll give you a category example, is orchestration and governance of AI. There got to be 100 companies that have tools to do that. And one of them I spent about 20 minutes with on Wednesday. Their big customer, the Department of Defense. And they showed me some of the tools that the U.S. Navy is using. And one of those, Rhino, had to deal with procurement. Now, that sounds fairly rudimentary, mundane. To buy something in the U.S. Navy, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And you've got this army of administrative people just to buy something. And so what this technology they've created does is it automates most of those functions. And I'm telling you right on a big screen, I looked at the workflow. You think the PBM chart is complicated? The procurement process in the Navy makes that look like Dr. Seuss. And what this does is automates that. So when you start thinking about everything you got to figure out and all the gates and hoops you got to jump through just to buy something, it's unbelievable. Is it any wonder that over-permitted states like California, it takes 10 years before you can put a shovel in the ground like what's happening right now after the fires hit?
Not to mention the high-speed rail line that has exactly one overpass.
What a joke that is. I know. But you know what I'm saying here. So these guys have automated that. And so these are tools that augment that process rather than paying a bunch of people to do a bunch of lookups and research and checking boxes and things like that. We're coming right back. We'll continue in the Element Wealth studio.
Hey,
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert
Let's get on with it.
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We are back with you in the Element Wealth studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now the Treasurer for the state of Mississippi, Treasurer David McRae. Mr. Treasurer, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, Gerard, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
You bet. So we wanted to have you in to talking about your efforts regarding unclaimed property, something that I submit doesn't get a lot of attention, but you've done a great deal just to promote the fact that there are a lot of people in Mississippi that have unclaimed property, and that's under your purview, and you've been really working feverishly to return it to them.
Yeah, that's been a big thing of mine since I got elected in 19. I said when I was on the stump and everything roaming around the state is that I wanted to innovate the state government, but especially unclaimed money and unclaimed property, was to get so we could get that back to the people of Mississippi. And we've done that through various and sundry different ways, getting rid of the notary so you can do make it easier, e-filing, being more proactive in finding people. And we have returned $150 million. The program started in 1984.
Wow.
And we have returned more than half of the money overall since 1984.
Okay, so what did we do before 1984? Did we just not have a program for that purpose, or did the treasurer just sat on it and didn't have really a means to return it? How did that work?
I mean, besides technology, which is the easy answer to anyone listening, it would say, oh, well, technology got better. And, yeah, it did. I mean, I remember going to the fairgrounds and every treasurer had that big old book, which was fun to see and all that. And, yeah, technology made it better. But we've just been so proactive in doing it. My team just going out and finding people. We're about to start another Unclaimed Money Roadshow, as I call them, and we're going to be visiting several different places around the state and just going out to the people and saying, hey, look, we're in your community, come by. Okay. And we'll have like 200-300 people show up at these events, and we'll find people anything from $20 to a couple $100,000. I mean, it's just amazing what people have and what they, and, of course, getting across to them that it's not a scam, but it's just amazing what people have. And technology has made it so much easier, but you have to have a staff. And I say my staff is one of the best, period, I think, in state government. I'm a little biased, but they are very hard-working staff. And I have about 8 people that work in unclaimed money. And they work tirelessly all day long trying to find people money. And, I mean, hey, you lose. You just don't know what you got.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people don't. And, that leads to what's going to be happening on August 17th, which is National Nonprofit Day. Which it's something we actively look for nonprofits around the state that have unclaimed money. And we found a lot of nonprofits that have had unclaimed money that is available to them. I mean,
interesting.
I had to write it down because it's just such an interesting thing. But we found $1,300 for the Mississippi Make-A-Wish. We found $60,000 for a church that will be using it for a cemetery. We found this morning $2,000 for Magnolia Speech School, which is near and dear to my heart.
Right.
And then the biggest one we found is $250,000 for the School for the Deaf and the Blind. Right. And that one, I have a great story to go with that one. Is that one was that money was in a foundation, and that all the members of the foundation the foundation died, and so it was being liquefied. Okay. And according to the will. And the address for the School for the Deaf and the Blind was put incorrectly on there. So it just went and sat at a bank from 2016 when the last person died of the foundation to when we found it in 2021 and handed it over to them.
Interesting.
So a lot of these nonprofits around the state may have unclaimed money because they changed names, they changed addresses. We found $16,000 for a youth soccer program just because they changed names. So
how does it end up in your office?
So it ends
how does that work?
After 5 years, the banks and anyone who has unclaimed money must turn it over to the state of Mississippi, and that comes to the Treasury. So
the banks.
The banks.
So most of this originates from banks, financial institutions.
A lot comes from banks. Some comes from energy companies who have, if you have a deposit that you moved and then you're supposed to get that deposit back, cable companies, gas, water. A lot of kids who are moving into dorms now, or not dorms, condos up at Ole Miss State or anywhere else in the state this week or are already moved in, they'll put a deposit down for gas or energy or with their rental company, and then in 4 years they'll move and the person can't find them because their address has changed. And we get a lot of that. A lot of wills and estates come up and have been probated, and somebody just can't find the heirs.
So it's in accordance with law.
Yeah.
Is where it ends up resting in the control of the state treasurer.
That's right.
And you're trying to get it back to them.
We want to just get it back. We don't want it. I mean, I'm sure somebody wants it in the state. But, the Treasury, we don't want it. We want to give it back to the people. Look, it's an economic boost, Gerard, for the state of Mississippi. Yeah. And it doesn't cost the taxpayers a cent.
Yeah.
I mean, what we found, and we constantly do studies on this, what we find is that when people get this money, they take it back to their local community, their local mom and pop store, and use it for something. I mean, people will spend it once they got it, and that's great for the state of Mississippi.
So let's do the math. How much has been returned since the program started, and how much has been returned since you've been the state treasurer?
A little more than 300 total has been returned since 1984, and since I've been treasurer, 150.
So half of it since you've been treasurer?
About half.
So to what do you attribute that, Mr. Treasurer?
It's, again, innovating. I mean, I came from the private sector.
Yeah.
And bringing those private sector kind of mindsets of making government for the people, trying to get it out and help the people of Mississippi get this money out. And the process was kind of arduous. It was just difficult. It was with the notary, having to do it by paper, which was just – no one had ever changed it. No one had ever taken the time to change it. Sure. So what we did. We changed it. We made it online. We made it easier to find. We made, again, my staff just being proactive about it. Just being that kind of guy who said, hey, people of Mississippi, you got money. You deserve it back, and we want to get it back to you.
Yeah. Well, I certainly can say that I've seen just citizens spread the word on social media, which doesn't cost anything, obviously. And so I've come across that where there have been like sharing of information from your office to let people know.
Well, there is a woman in Madison County named Arlette Thomas.
She's one that I'm talking about, yeah.
I figured you were.
Yeah.
She is an amazing person.
Yeah.
She made it a goal one day to say, I'm just going to return. And she told me, I'm going to return. She doesn't work for me.
Right.
And she said, I'm going to return $10,000. Well, she did that in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And today she has returned $2 million.
That's incredible.
People. And she's asked for a list. So we give her a list and say, hey, go at it. And she's making it a goal to return another $1 million. She just feels compelled, and I'm glad Arlette does. I mean, she is an amazing woman, an amazing citizen for the state of Mississippi, and a great volunteer for the state treasury.
Yeah, no doubt. So you're right. She's contacting people kind of in her orbit, or people that she can get contact information from and say, hey, look, you got this sitting there. And so that direct contact with a person from someone other than the treasurer's office obviously is producing benefit, because she's returned. She's helped people reclaim $2 million, right?
$2 million. I mean, $2 million. And I mean, there's been small sums, large sums, six figures, two figures. I mean, it's amazing what she has found. And some of these people were in her neighborhood that just had money. She just, I think, started first, just looking at people in her neighborhood. People she knows. Yeah. And there she went. And I mean, so that has helped us get to this goal of 150. The other thing is, last year the legislature gave me a little money to go ahead and just send automatic checks to people.
Oh, okay.
So we can send up to $5,000 of easy to know claims. Like deposits, we know it's you. So bank accounts, wills and estates, life insurance, that we're not talking about those. We're talking about, we know for a fact it's Gerard.
I got you.
And so we've been able to just send people automatic mail. Cash money in the bank.
How about that?
I mean, to the mail. Yeah. And that has been a big boost in all this.
That's
of
awesome.
course, you couldn't imagine the amount of phone calls we got at first saying, hey, it's real. It's real. But yes, it is. I mean, we put a letter and put in official letterhead, all that good stuff. But, people cashed it. But that's what we want. We want people to get their money back, to be happy about it. I mean, look, you find a little money in your coat pocket. Winter, I mean, I know it's hot as Hades outside right now, but come December, we'll get 2 days of cold weather, and you're going to have a coat on, and you're going to find $20, and you're happy about that, right?
That's pretty strong. So are there similar programs in other states? Are you aware?
There are. Every treasurer is a little different. So some handle unclaimed money, some don't. But some of them are not as proactive as ours. Some are very proactive. But we, for our state, we return, I think, probably some of the most in the country.
Okay. Well, if you can hang around, we keep talking. I want to get your thoughts on something you and I talk about a lot offline, the public employees retirement system.
I'd love to. Great.
We got the treasurer of the state of Mississippi in the Element Wealth studio, Treasurer David McRae. We're coming right back.
With Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. We're chatting with Mississippi's State Treasurer, David McRae. So, Mr. Treasurer, first of all, good work on getting money that rightfully belongs to Mississippians back to them in the efforts that your office has put in to make sure they get their money back. So $150 million has been returned under your watch of the $300+ million since the program's been in effect.
That's right. I mean, we're shocked at that. I mean, we're shocked about it. I mean, we set goals when we first got here. We said, hey, we'll get to $20 million after so many years. We'll get to 8. And then it was like, hey, that was kind of easy. Yeah. And we'll get to 80. And then we got to 80. Then we bumped up to 150. I mean, it's just, like I said earlier, it's all about innovating how state government works, how the Treasury works, modernizing it to how other, and looking at other treasuries and seeing how they did it and, replicating that and make it work for the people of Mississippi. I mean, we're getting money back to them, $150 million over 5 years to the people of Mississippi. That's just like I said, a big economic boost and only helps Mississippi as we move down the line.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's turn our attention just to overall state finances and what's going on in the Treasurer's office. Just in general. Of course, the money flows through your office. Literally comes in, then it goes out.
It's like a water faucet. Yeah. No. Last year, we're in our new fiscal year. We're in Q1. We ended last year on a very positive note in terms of investments. We made $421 million.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years under my leadership, we've made $1 billion in investments. So we obviously know how to capitalize on the markets. We're just kind of, right now waiting to see what interest rates do, if they're going to go down or stay the same. You ask anybody, you get, you ask 20 people, you get 100 different answers on how that's going to happen. So, we're kind of curious how that works. But, if interest rates go down, we know how to manage our investments to make sure we're maximizing the profits for Mississippi. It's $421 million last year. It's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's a great amount of money into the general fund that we can use for infrastructure projects or education or whatever we want to use it for, and it's money we didn't have. So I think, fiscally, I think the state is in the best shape possible it could possibly be, and I'm excited for it. I mean, we have a great future ahead of us.
Yeah. So what is our current outstanding debt right now? Have you done the numbers on that, looked at that recently?
Our debt we paid off last year was roughly about $500 million, which is low. For the state of Mississippi. That's great. So we're happy about that. So our debt services was low last year. We only bumped it up because we did a couple infrastructure projects and building projects that we needed to do, like the alcohol warehouse that needed to be built. So we had to take out a little a loan for that bond for that, which is no problem. But the year before that, we were down to $425 million. So, we'll just see how it goes this year. It's early in the year, but we've been using cash for everything, which is great, and we have cash sitting around to be used for these things. So under Tate Reeves' leadership as governor, we've just not had to do many bonds other than for school projects, IHL projects, which need to be done for all the IHL universities and everything.
Yeah, so that's certainly been something that the governor, the lieutenant governor in particular, likes to talk about it as well. So hats off to our state government for living within their means, still producing, $500 million surplus, I think, this year?
That's correct. So, I mean, and then our rainy day fund is flush with cash, which, the credit agencies love that. So they love all this. I mean, so for those things, that keeps giving us a good credit rating. So when we need to borrow money, we will borrow it at the lowest rate we possibly can borrow it at. So that saves us money in the long run, which we can go use for other things. But as everybody knows, you always use cash before you use credit. So that's what we're doing.
Let's talk about the public employees retirement system. What's going on there? Something you and I talk about a lot. Tell the folks how you're involved with PERS from a board governance perspective.
I am a permanent member of PERS. The treasurer is a permanent member by statute of PERS, so I get the fortunate circumstance of sitting on that board. The PERS is the biggest liability of the state. I mean, one of the biggest liabilities. It's roughly somewhere, if you look at the numbers, anywhere between $23 and $26 billion liability. It has roughly $35 billion in the bank. So it can't, so it's not underwater.
Well, not cash money in the bank,
cash money.
But in its portfolio. It's assets.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
I get it. Yeah, it's not underwater. It's not at risk of defaulting on benefit payments today.
And that's one thing I think a lot of people misunderstand is that, hey, yes, $26 billion, it's a scary number. It scares me. But people are like, oh, well, it's underwater. It's going down, sinking ship. And it is going down. I mean, you do have to find a solution to this problem.
Yeah.
And how we got to $26 billion worth of debt, of liability, is that you took on, back in 2000, they increased the COLA to 3% plus compounded interest.
Yep.
And that's just not sustainable under any model.
And it's automatic. It doesn't matter what the CPI is. It doesn't matter. Not connected to it, like Social Security is, for example.
Correct. And so, that's what the legislature did. And, let me put a disclaimer before any of this. Any changes I talk about PERS does not affect anybody currently in PERS. We're only going to talk about, if I talk about it, any changes. It's people that are employed later. So if you're in PERS and listening to this, your retirement will not be affected by anything going on at the moment.
Yeah.
But so the legislature last year came up with a solution to create a new tier that would not have a COLA. So you got rid of the 3% plus compounded interest, but you got no COLA. which is an issue. So what they've come up with a new tier to stop the bleeding of hiring new hires with this incredibly generous COLA, which is fine. I mean, that's what the contract says, and that's what you get. But that only solved the problem on that side. What PERS needs is a consistent revenue source. And, I've looked at the numbers, and the numbers would be roughly $200 million for the considerable future, and by 2050 with just
a year.
A year.
Right.
And by 2050-ish, it would bring PERS up to 73% funded.
Yep.
I mean, unfortunately, that's just the math of things. I mean, It is what it is. And I've talked to some leadership over in the House, and I'm going to talk to leadership in the Senate. And, if we do not fix this problem, our credit will be downgraded.
Already has been, right?
As
a result of this. AA plus to AA, I think?
We're AA still with a not such a positive outlook.
Yeah.
So we're still –
and this is one of the reasons.
This is one of the main reasons.
Yeah, probably the main reason.
The main reason that we can fix.
Yeah,
Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, and so my fear is that if we do not put in a consistent revenue source of a significant number, $200 million, like I said, by 2050, only gets you to 73, but that's fine. At least you're putting in money so the credit agencies can look that you're actually making some difference.
Right.
Right now we have $0 going in.
Right.
If you have a ton of credit card debt, Gerard, you're going to start paying something in.
Yep.
We have the most money of cash at the moment in state's history. We should be using some of it to be paying down our credit card debt.
Yeah. And we did a couple of years ago, as you know, the legislature wrote a check for $100 million, transferred it to PERS, but it wasn't a recurring stream, and the credit agencies know that. It was a one-off.
And actually that kind of hurts us a little bit. One-time payments have actually been in the past a negative towards us.
Really?
Because they see that as you can only do it once, you can't do it twice.
Sure.
Hey, a magician can make an elephant disappear.
That makes sense.
The trick is to bring the elephant back.
Yeah, I get it. Okay.
So, I mean, and that's nice, and thank you, legislature, for doing that, and I applaud them for taking the steps to try to fix that. But it's time to actually put a consistent revenue source towards PERS in perpetuity. And on top of that, it would be my recommendation to put if we have any surplus revenue, put surplus revenue up to 8% or 10% surplus revenue on top of the $200 million, and you'll start getting to that number a lot faster.
So just pulling $200 million out of thin air on an annual basis would cause a lot of heartburn for a lot of people, as you know. But I hear you.
But we're sitting on the largest amount of money we've ever sat on.
Well, we are, and we can certainly write checks out of some of those funds that are flush with money right now to PERS, but it starts to deplete those funds unless we continue to produce surpluses and replenish.
It does. And, yes, it is going to cause heartburn. But had we started addressing this problem 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about $200 million.
I'm with you.
And, the longer you kick this can down the road, the more expensive
it's more expensive.
It's going to be very expensive. So today is the cheapest number I can give you.
We are a microcosm of Social Security, which celebrated its 90th birthday yesterday. Right? It's the same situation. Same deal.
Same situation. And, I'm hoping the legislature, they're having a hearing on the 21st, which is next week.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they really bring up a consistent revenue source of significant standard. I mean, the credit rating is a massive concern of mine. And if we are downgraded, we're not going to be able to do the projects we want to do.
Well, it's and we got about 15 seconds here. It's a problem when we need to borrow money because it's more expensive.
That's right.
And we can't anticipate that terminally we won't have to borrow money. We can't anticipate that.
That's correct.
Yep. Appreciate you coming in, Mr.
All right,
President.
Gerard, I appreciate it very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
Hey, this is Bob, and
covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians, Gerard Gibert, Middays with Gerard, SuperTalk Mississippi.
I feel a hot wind on my shoulder, and the touch of the world that is older. I turn the switch and check the number.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. The Dow presently up 130 points. It's had a pretty good run this week. The investors largely shaking off a lot of the data. The Nasdaq's down 78 points, but man, big tech's had an incredible run, and we've got hotter than expected PPI. That's the cost of inputs to the production process. Yesterday, CPI came in a little hotter than expected. The big concern was the core CPI, which is everything but food and energy. But the PPI is worrisome by investors, I should say, because it's an indicator of the future price of goods at the retail level. So we're still not really getting to where the Fed wants inflation to be, to lower interest rates. And, of course, the president has been imploring too late Jay Powell, as he calls him, to do so. And I would say that while the investment community, economists expect the Fed to lower rates by at least a quarter point next month, that the PPI report yesterday is somewhat worrisome. However, the unemployment data came in at a level that maybe makes the Fed think, yeah, we probably ought to get the rates down. Typically, it's thought that lowering rates increases the demand for work. Because companies spend more money because the cost of borrowing is less. So we'll see where all that goes. Of course, the president is headed to Alaska today to talk to Vladimir Putin. And so you got the master deal maker on the planet in President Trump working with Putin. And latest reports I've seen, and of course everybody's got an opinion on this. I don't know what's going to happen. And the president said he'll know within 2 minutes whether or not something's achievable. And this was so great when a reporter said, well, how are you going to do that? And he said, well, this is what I do. I'm a deal maker. Like, dude, wake up. He's not going to talk about that. People like the president, they just have this innate ability to just read people and figure stuff out like that. That's what makes good leaders, their ability to very rapidly assess a person, their personality, their intuitions, their inclinations. When you're dealing with big negotiations like this, and negotiating the end of the war, that's got to be the biggest form of negotiation there is in our society. The problem is Putin says at least those who are speculating, yeah, we want all of Ukraine. I think they're trying to work some deal where they get some part of it and maybe allow Putin to participate in some of the mineral riches in the country. But some analysts, those who are speculating on the outcome of this meeting, say, yeah, he's not going to rest until he recovers full control, re-attains full control of Ukraine. Still mad that they left, I guess, so to speak. Wanting to reconstitute the old USSR, I guess, Rhino? I think that's kind of what his goal is.
I think his stated goal is actually the revival of the Russian Empire.
Oh, okay.
Which predates the
USSR, yeah, exactly, Soviet Union. Well, so it will be interesting to see what happens in that regard. The conversation with the treasurer was interesting, no doubt about it. And you heard him deliver the news on PERS, and our credit rating did get downgraded. I do believe, as he said, it's largely because of our PERS liability, and the credit rating agencies are doing that across the country in other states that also have big unfunded liabilities in their pension plans. This whole cost of living adjustment 13th check situation, I know Thompson Greenwood sent me some information privately as well about that, and he's always been a person that says we just need to freeze the cost of living adjustment as what it is today and not increase it over time based on current law, which is this, depending on where you are in your retirement, whether it's 3% compounded or straight 3%. I can't remember the exact rules on that, but there's a period of time where it's just a straight 3%. Then after that, it's 3% compounded during your retirement years. So, I mean, that's law. And you're going to get massive objection from those who receive that. They look forward to that check every year, and they look forward to it increasing automatically every year. This is where I think the legislature ought to go meet with leaders who represent the Public Employees Retirement System members and just work something out. Hey, look, guys, either we work something out or there are not going to be benefits in the future. So let's come to some agreement on what would be palatable to all sides. Coming right back after Fox News SuperTalk News.
Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
So, just continuing also the discussion I was having about this conference I just went to, which was incredible. This artificial intelligence event, AI4. So we did receive keynote presentation from Jeffrey Hinton. He's considered the godfather of artificial intelligence. And the following, I think that was Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm sorry to say I can't remember her last name, but her first name's Feifei, and she's considered the godmother of artificial intelligence. And these were just incredible presentations. And it was
Feifei Lee.
That's it, yeah. I believe a professor at Stanford, if I'm not mistaken, is what she currently does. But it was on stage, I mean, in the big arena that is there on the MGM property. They said that thing can hold 17,000. And it was half full. Of course, it hosts basketball games, boxing matches, and other events. Of course, chairs were on the floor, and then folks were up in the graduated seating as well. And then a big stage in the front. And it was just a one-on-one. You know, an individual conducting an interview, essentially, kind of like we do here with the keynote speakers. And it was just fascinating to hear their take on things. And I know a lot of folks are concerned about artificial intelligence replacing them and replacing their work. And I've seen some who say, well, those who are in occupations involving manual labor won't be replaced. That's absolutely not true. The humanoid robots that companies are working on, and you've seen this, Rhino, Apple just announced a massive investment in humanoid robots as an example. So I think I shared before I went that the video I saw, and I can't remember the company that produced it, the one that caught my attention were the robots loading and unloading an airplane, baggage on an airplane, just replacing that form of manual labor. I just thought it was interesting. But even painting, plumbing, cooking, electrical wiring, construction type jobs. And I don't have the answer. I don't know what this means for society. Jensen Huang, the founder, CEO of NVIDIA, they're the guys that make the chips, the processors that are optimized. Little did they know that when they created these things for video games, 20 years or so ago.
Closer to 30 now.
Was it really? Okay. Well, before, I give you this example. Before PCs were shipped with high-quality graphics capability, it's just standard, and before monitors that provided high resolution were affordable, I had an NVIDIA graphics card in my personal machine at my office, and I had dual NEC multi-sync monitors. I want to say those monitors were like $1,500 when I bought them to get, 1960 or whatever the high res was. And the NVIDIA card added to my machine, it was $1,000 or something.
Oh, yeah.
Now, all that stuff's standard today, right? Most machines have dual ports, the 1.4 port configuration for dual monitors, and a high-res monitor like game quality high-res monitor, which is typically considered needing higher resolution than standard business applications. I mean, those are what, $400 or $500 now? And like I said, I remember you can get them cheaper than that, I know, but like a 31-inch or something screen.
I mean, there are pro esports gamers that have particular brands they buy from or particular styles they buy, and some of them swear by certain frame rates and frames per second that they need or the refresh frequency, and I'm convinced that that's all, or not all, but mostly psychosomatic, because the visual difference to the human eye between 60 frames a second and 120 frames a second is minuscule.
I completely agree. It's kind of similar to 35, 40 years ago. I used to be really interested in audio gear. I wouldn't call myself an audiophile because I couldn't afford that kind of stuff. But that's exactly right. When they get into all these little minute measurements, like, I can't hear that, the difference. Yeah. Now, there's some, these big-time audiophiles, oh, yeah, I can clearly discern this, all that kind of stuff. And there was a time when the move in that world 30 years ago was more towards speakers, for example, that were more flat in nature, meaning they didn't really lean one way or another, bass treble in the middle, right? So to try to reproduce it as close as possible to the original recorded content, and that's what floated the boat of the audiophiles.
Plus, you didn't have to fight what was already preset in your equalization.
Exactly right. You didn't have to have equalizers to play around with a bunch of knobs to get it right to your preferences. Well, I'm just using that as an analogy to the high res. To your point, monitors, like, I can't see that. The human eye can't discern that. The machines are more precise than we can sense. All that to say, look at what we have and the cost of that stuff. I mean, just my personal example, having to spend $1,500 on a monitor that today's $400, right? And having to go spend $1,000 on a video card, it's standard feature in most machines you buy today. Just if you wanted two monitors, you had to go spend a bunch of money to have a dual monitor configuration. I just think that's great. And so, by the way, every one of these exhibitors, all 400 of them, all had really high-end systems that weren't that expensive to display, and demonstrate their various solutions. Jensen Huang said, AI isn't going to replace your job. Someone using AI is going to replace your job. I just thought that was profound and made a lot of sense to me. But what we do know is, think about these 400 exhibitors in this room. Many of those companies didn't exist, weren't even a twinkle in the eye 3 years ago. Think about all the jobs that created. Because every one of those exhibits all had 4 or 5 people in their little golf shirts, with their logo. I mean, that's the way you do it. That's cool.
Well, one thing I would say to the people that might be worried that their job is going to be taken by an AI robot, just think back to the 80s and think back to how much a VHS copy of a movie cost you in the mid-80s.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
To buy a movie on VHS would run you $80, $100 in 80s money.
Yeah.
That's pushing $300 in today's money. for a movie.
That's exactly right.
And then more and more people adopted the technology. You had, I think, the major changing point or turning point was Top Gun. Came out on VHS with a big promotional crossover push from Pepsi. And Pepsi fronted a whole bunch of money so you could buy Top Gun for less than $30 on VHS. A movie for $30.
Yeah, well.
And then you look at the later days of VHS, and they couldn't give those things away. And it just takes time for adoption, efficiencies, and economies of scale.
Totally true.
So if you're a construction worker and you're worried that Joe Robot's going to start framing and take your job, you got to remember Joe Robot's got to get to a price point that it's economically feasible for your boss to buy that instead of hiring you.
Over paying people, essentially. Right. Now, the one thing I used to say about using machines to replace people, people don't get sick, quit, or take vacation. Or humans do. Machines don't. Pardon me. I said that backwards. And that's always a benefit. But look, this isn't new to society, and I bring this up to people who freak out about this, like, are there any livery stables around here anymore? What about TV repair shops? I remember those were on every corner, because TVs were tube-based TVs when I was growing up. They always broke, and you had to have a TV repairman come out and stick tubes in it. Do they still manufacture clotheslines, for example? Think about just dryers that have been put on the scenes. I mean, there's a million examples. Radiator repair, right? Who has radiators anymore? Don't have that anymore. I mean, so we always are going to have that sort of cannibalization of some job, some service replaced. But what happens is, by orders of magnitude, new opportunities. And that's the point I'm trying to make of going into this room with these 400 companies that didn't exist 3 years ago, that are working in occupations that didn't exist 3 years ago. That's what's exciting about this. Coming right back, we got Caleb Saylor. Stay with us.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Thanks for tuning in to Middays. We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We're pleased to welcome now Caleb Saylor. He's a multimedia journalist with SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Yeah, I think the listening audience got a little confused yesterday, Gerard. Dave had me pop in for a quick segment.
I saw that, yeah.
And so they're probably like, we're getting this guy again? Like, what's going on here? I'm not running for governor, by the way, guys, so I don't have a big announcement. I know everybody else is probably lining up to do so.
Oh, my gosh. Well, there's always plenty of news going on. So let's start with the governor. You guys wrote an article about this. The governor announcing that the state of Mississippi will seek a waiver for its food stamp SNAP program to make certain junk food ineligible, right?
Right. So if you tuned in to our website, and even Newsweek cited us in a story this week about the governor came in here in studio, talked with Richard, and Richard asked him if Mississippi was going to join all these other states in eliminating junk foods, sugary sodas, candy, snack cakes, etc., from the SNAP program, and the governor clearly said it's on his radar, and so he's eyeing the removal of junk food from the SNAP program. And the argument from Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's on his Make America Healthy Again campaign, is that taxpayers are bearing the brunt not only of these costs at the grocery store, but also these healthcare costs that are associated with chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart failure, kidney failure, etc. And a lot of these chronic illnesses can be linked to junk foods, right? You eat an overabundance of sugar, candy, junk, it's going to cause health issues. But a lot of these SNAP recipients are also Medicaid recipients and on government-assisted health care as well. So taxpayers are funding the consumption of these products and also subsidizing the health care for people who are consuming. That's what Secretary Kennedy is saying. And so Governor Reeves said it's pretty much a no-brainer for these states. There's 12 states right now that all of them are getting approved. The Department of Agriculture, which oversees the SNAP program, the food stamps program, Secretary Brooke Rollins is approving them, giving them waivers to rid junk foods from the catalog of what people can purchase. And so if Mississippi were to join in, we would get a waiver instantaneously.
Yeah, so the problem, as you know, is that the Biden administration it wasn't so quick and anxious to approve those waivers, but we got a different president and a different administration, and so they are.
Yeah, they're holding press conferences and bragging about the states that are getting these waivers or seeking these waivers now. So it's a very different change of tune. The current Health and Human Services Secretary, like I mentioned, RFK, has just been keen on, we've got a chronic health problem in America, and it's linked to the foods that we're eating, the over-processed, over-sugary substances in our foods, and the easiest way to start making the country healthy again is to start weaning people off of this stuff. And if they're using government subsidized food programs to do so, well, eliminating that can help with some of the chronic illnesses. In Mississippi, it makes so much sense, according to the governor, because again, we lead the nation in obesity rates,
right?
And we're one of the worst, have some of the worst chronic illness outcomes with heart disease, etc. And so I think I would be pretty shocked if Mississippi doesn't join forces with some of our neighboring states soon in getting these waivers.
Makes total sense. And again, other states are pursuing it. Only makes sense that Mississippi would. Yep. And certainly we need to improve the health of our population, and this is a step in the right direction. So I applaud the governor for seeking this waiver.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in other news, Gerard, a cool story. This one kind of hit me in the heartstrings because I'm in the ministry, and so I care a lot about youth of Mississippi. And this is a partnership between the Mississippi Development Authority, a $16 million partnership between the agency and Canopy Children's Solutions. I know you're very well acclimated with Canopy Children's Solutions. They're launching this platform called Canopy Anytime. It's targeted to meet the mental health needs or any prospective mental health needs of middle and high schoolers in the state. So this program was piloted last year in Madison County schools, and there were, I believe, 628 students that were served on this platform. 143 of them were identified as having immediate mental health needs. So what this platform does, Gerard, is it allows these students and parents to access certain resources, counseling, etc. It's a digital online-based platform that gets them the help they need when they're enduring some sort of mental health episode. I believe last year we had an upwards of 90% increase in the amount of students nationwide that identified having some sort of mental health episode. And the numbers of students that have felt hopeless, had these immense amounts of sadness, depressive episodes, even here in the state of Mississippi, has increased. And I know the Department of Mental Health has, unveiled the 988 suicide hotline that people can call if they're struggling with mental health. But a lot of those resources are typically targeted at adults, although teens and children are definitely focused on, that they're not being left in the dark. But this program specifically will serve to specifically meet the needs of these middle and high school students who, may not understand what's going on, may not have answers as to why they're feeling this certain way, so they can get in contact with professionals, get in contact with or get access documents and curriculum that can help them with what they're going through. And right now, 29 school districts in the state of Mississippi have partnered with this program, and many of them are in low and middle income areas too. So this is going to be resources that can help people that are in poverty or can't really afford counseling services have access to them through this partnership with Canopy.
Okay, that's a good deal.
Really good deal.
And it's a great organization. Canopy
absolutely.
Is.
Again, and I've done youth ministry for many years now and helped serve in my church, and I talk to these students, Gerard, and they're going through so much, and they don't really understand what they're going through sometimes, but they know how they feel, and it's really cool to see the state taking a proactive step and actually doing what government's supposed to be doing, serving its constituents. And so hopefully this will yield positive results. I'm a big fan of Canopy Children's Solutions and the work they do. I know a lot of the people up there, and I know that they're going to work hard to make sure that our teens have better mental health outcomes in Mississippi.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So what's going on at UMC?
This is not a good story. This is a former pediatric doctor at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, Dr. Mehul Dixit. He was indicted earlier this week on over 24 charges related to sex crimes, particularly those committed against youth. From 2013 to 2023, the indictment alleges that there were multiple incidents of him acting inappropriately. He lost his medical license in the state of Mississippi recently and was deemed a threat. Like, his practice was deemed a threat to the public. There were a couple of teenagers in Mississippi and even one in Florida that have accused him of touching them inappropriately. I won't go into graphic details, but of acting inappropriately, not wearing gloves while he was doing this. So obviously there is some alleged illicit intent there by this doctor's behalf. And so the Attorney General's office, Lynn Fitch in Mississippi, is asking people who may have any information about alleged crimes this doctor may or may not have committed, anybody that may have been a victim of his, to come forward, because they're making a case against him right now and they need every shred of evidence they can get to use against him in court.
Interesting.
Yeah, very, very sad story. If you want to know more, go to supertalk.fm. I'm not going to go into the details of this. It's just sad when people are put in positions of power and have trust of the public to do something like take care of children, right? That they're acting inappropriately, as this doctor is alleged to have done. All right, well, Gerard, football season is coming.
About sports.
2 weeks. I mean, imagine, Gerard, 2 Saturdays from now, me and you will both be in Oxford watching the Rebels.
Hard to believe.
Well, on the HBCU side of things, Jackson State, the reigning HBCU national champions, have 6 players up for the Black College Football Player of the Year award. And then Alcorn State has 1 player. The full list can be found on our website, supertalk.fm. But it looks like people in the HBCU sphere are really looking to Jackson State to have another good year. I mean, they won the whole thing last year under head coach T.C. Taylor, and people are buying a lot of stock into the Tigers again. And another set of cool stories I saw this week from yesterday and even this morning. It looks like athletics director at Mississippi State, Zach Selman's listening. He's listening to his constituents. I'm on Twitter. I like scrolling and seeing what people have to say. And a lot of the Mississippi State fans have appeared to be endorsing this interlocking MSU logo that they used to wear on their helmets and have on the field. Well, they're going to wear it this year. The interlocking MSU helmet will be worn as part of a whiteout concept when the Bulldogs have their SEC home opener against Tennessee. It'll be in celebration of the 25th year anniversary of the Snow Bowl, when the Bulldogs beat Texas A&M in Shreveport when tumultuous downpour of snow. And also Pete Golding, Ole Miss defensive coordinator, got a huge pay raise. He's now the top income earner of an assistant in the SEC and number 2 in the nation.
Wow. Well, he's done pretty good.
Well, you saw his defense last year. And look, the Ole Miss defense was really good last year. Well, Golding told the media yesterday he doesn't see them taking any step back this year.
Should be exciting.
Full story on that at supertalk.fm, and I've got players mentioned and everything.
Caleb Sailors, multimedia journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News. Appreciate it, Caleb.
Thanks, Gerard.
Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Takes me along the way. See if there's a gotta make you feel sometimes. Get happy, so we are eagles on one nest, nesting in our soul.
And at supertalk.fm, Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Wash away my troubles, wash away my pain, with the rain and Shambhala. Wash away my sorrow, wash away my shame, with the rain and Shambhala. Oh.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. On the C Spire text line, David Madison said, we were talking earlier about the president and Vladimir Putin meeting to try to bring an end to this ridiculous war. This is from the C Spire text line. Question for Trump: how do you cut a deal with a sociopath? Putin is an old school tyrant. Well, I think that's why the president said he'll know within 2 minutes whether or not a deal is possible. And I would agree, he is a lunatic, no doubt about it. If the unclaimed funds are in the form of stocks or bonds, it takes months for the treasurer to repay it to you because they outsource it, says Johnny in Macomb. Yeah, I think there are third parties, to my understanding, is how that works. So I would just kind of stay on the state treasurer's office to make sure that stuff moves its way through. Senator Hill blasted the new fifth-tier concept, yet she still doesn't provide an alternative. I saw that as well. That's Ben from Madison. I'm not really sure what her specific concerns were. I did ask those on her post there, but I never returned to it to see if there was a reply. Ben, what did she say? What is she's telling you about what her concerns are with respect to the Tier 5? She says that's why she didn't vote for HB 1, which was the tax reform bill. I think there are other reasons. She opposed raising the the excise tax on fuel as well. But she did. I saw her provide a screenshot of the PERS document, one pager that shows the contrast across the major features of the retirement program, contrast between the current tier, Tier 4, and the new tier, Tier 5, at a fairly detailed level there. It was a good document published by the Public Employees Retirement System. By the way, I ran into I believe she may be the chief counsel, if I'm not mistaken, for PERS in the airport, Rhino. She may be the chief administrator. I may have that wrong. And she was headed to an event in Seattle that was for state public retirement system administrators. They were having an event over the weekend in Seattle. So you had to go to one corner of the country for that. And so, I applaud her. It was a weekend, which is kind of unusual, I thought, for signing up to go. I think just interacting and networking with other people that do the same thing you do, always a valuable experience. No doubt about that. Let's see. Ben also said, I've seen a lot of legislators make posts about PERS the last few days. Still have yet to see or hear a comprehensive plan on the future of PERS. Senator Sparks may be the only one who has been direct about how much money, $250 to $300 million, needs to be infused every year into the system. Just an idea, but maybe we need to shelve the tax rebate and pump the extra cash directly into PERS. Yeah, so you heard the lieutenant governor. I think that's what Ben's talking about at the Neshoba County Fair. Propose a tax rebate. What was it, Rhino? $316 million, I think is what it amounted to, the figure I recall. And it was 15% of your 2023 income tax liability. So obviously the Department of Revenue would have that information sufficient to compute the total amount required for that. Yeah, $316 million. So good stuff. And from Ben, I should say, that we need to seriously think about this issue. I mean, that's something we've talked about exhaustively on this program, to the point we've had some people say, can we just talk about something else? And while I get it, the fact is, this is, as I said in the article, as I titled it, the elephant in the room. It's like Social Security that hit its 90-year mark, yesterday. And the president said, we will always protect Social Security for our wonderful seniors. And I hear you, Mr. President, and I agree. We certainly need to do that, but really no specific plans have been offered to provide such protections with it running out of money in 7 years. And by running out of money, not having sufficient money to cover 100% of the benefit obligation. It's now estimated that Social Security would only be able to pay 77% of total benefits based on the rate at which the trust fund's being depleted. And, of course, we have been in a situation where the amount coming in on an annual basis from workers is not sufficient to cover benefits going out. And really two sources of revenue. It's the amount coming in and the interest on the amount that Social Security has loaned to the Treasury. And, of course, those bonds are being redeemed on a daily basis, and so the revenue from those bonds is decreasing because there are no surpluses to loan the Treasury. So the combination of that and the savings in the trust fund that are put away for the purpose of dealing with situations where there aren't sufficient contributions coming in to cover benefits, we've been in that situation now for 5 years. And so it's just a matter of time that the program will not be able to meet its obligations. And though I know that the $6,000 additional standard deduction, part of the big, beautiful bill to seniors that are eligible based on their income, is certainly welcome and popular by those who benefit from it. But the reality is it means that the revenue from taxes levied on Social Security benefits will also decrease. That revenue goes into the Social Security system to pay benefits. So because of that new standard deduction, the point at which Social Security can not meet its obligations has been moved forward by about 10 months. That's what it amounts to in the 2033 time frame. PERS, not at that level, but it is a problem that needs to be addressed. I think the Tier 5 was a wise thing to do, but it's a partial, I wouldn't even call it a solution. It's just an effort to address the problem, but it doesn't permanently solve it. I agree, Ben, just as you heard the treasurer say, yeah, we need $200 million a year for many years. So we got that going on. We got a discussion of a tax rebate, and we got income tax being reduced as well, which I believe will ultimately cause a decrease in revenue. I want and anticipate and want to believe that eliminating the income tax, which I think was the right thing to do, will boost economic growth. But that economic growth has to translate into more consumption to produce sales taxes to offset the loss of income tax revenue. The state of Mississippi currently has a GDP of $150 billion. Just doing some quick math there, our GDP would have to increase by about 60% to offset the loss of income tax revenue. So you see kind of these issues converging. PERS needs more money. We've got the issue of, again, teacher pay is falling behind. It's a problem. Additional expenses associated with Medicaid and possibly the SNAP program based on the big, beautiful bill. So a lot of things going on at one time that our legislature is certainly going to have to deal with. Let's see here. I wish President Trump would have told Zelensky to get his ASS to Alaska for the meeting or cough up $400 billion and pay us back, says Jerry in Pontotoc. I actually think the meeting would be better if it were just Trump and Putin, and I think that's what's going to happen. So we'll see. Most of what this country sent to Ukraine was old military assets that we were going to throw away. About a third of it was cash money. It's still a lot of money. And, yeah, I am concerned about what happened to that money, and I think there is a need for more accountability and transparency, no doubt about it. And we have some, as you know, Rhino in Congress that want to send more. Old Lindsey Graham, he never met a war he didn't want to fund, has he? John says, what is the offset from the tax increase on gas and the lottery money? The tax increase on gas and the lottery money. So the tax increase on gas, the lottery brings in $120 million a year. The tax increase on gas wasn't that supposed to, when it gets to 9 cents, as I recall, Rhino, that was supposed to generate, $300 million a year is a figure that sticks in my head that Senator Josh Harkins, I know, talked about on our program. We might have to look that up for you. But those two are mutually exclusive, John. This is John on the C Spire text line, so I'm not really sure where you're going with the question. The lottery proceeds go to transportation infrastructure. It's $80 million a year. This tax increase, I want to say it's $300 million. I'm gonna send a note to Brad White and see if he can tell me real quick. Coming right back.
Polyumpa Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
I was a little too tall, could have used a few pounds. Tight pants points hollering down. She was a black-haired beauty with big dark eyes and points all her own, sitting way up high. Way up firm and high. Out past the cornfields where the woods got heavy. Out in the back seat of my 60 Chevy. Working on mysteries without any clues.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. So back to what John was saying. I think I get what he's saying now is concerning lottery proceeds and the recently increase in the excise tax on fuel. The recent increase. What is the offset from the tax increase on gas and the lottery money? So it starts out at 3%, just went in 3 cents. 3 cents just went into effect July 1, and then it escalates in 3-cent increments annually over the next 2 years, terminating at an additional 9 cents. That's on top of the 18 cents and change we paid, has been in effect, I should say, for a long time, since the 80s. So it will top us out at 27 cents. Is it 27.4, I think, Rhino, is what it is? Yeah. So it's estimated to produce $200 million a year. I said 300 was the number I recall. So $200 million a year. Proceeds from the lottery that go to the State Highway Fund max out at $80 million per year. So this is an additional $200 million. Most of that money does stay with the Department of Transportation at the state level, but some of it is also allocated. Actually, it's half and half. Half goes to MDOT for state roads, the other half to local city and county road projects. Could any of that money be routed to PERS? Well, sure, the legislature can do anything it wants, but you're just playing a shell game. So there are infrastructure, transportation infrastructure needs, and this is what the Department of Transportation and others have been conveying to our legislature for a long time. So they finally got this in, and the way they were able to get a bill that could pass, let's be honest about it, is it was an offset. Okay, we're going to increase the excise tax on fuel. We're going to decrease the sales tax on groceries. And by the way, we're going to phase out the income tax. So it was kind of a basket of provisions which enabled it to make its way through both houses and then ultimately be signed into law by the governor. Now, we must point out that there's a flaw in the trigger provisions in the bill that somehow you've been merciless on them, by the way. I
intend to remain that way.
Made its way through the Mississippi State Senate.
I have no sympathy for people with cushy gigs making minor errors.
And all those whose eyes, were placed on those documents, those measures, those bills that included really a glaring error in the placement of the decimal point. And so I maintain that we don't have any triggers. We're just going to eliminate the income tax. Now, it's over a 14-year period of time. For the first 4 years, no trigger test is applied. It's just quarter-point increments to take us from 4 to 3, beginning in 2027, ending in 2030. And then for the years after that, there's a trigger test, but the test is kind of meaningless because it's only going to require that our revenue exceed spending by a whopping $4 million in today a $7 billion budget. So essentially we don't have any triggers, no tests, no gates, financial gates to move through in order to reduce the income tax at the rate of 0.3% per year. So I think you could argue that in 14 years, we're not going to have an income tax based on this, unless changes are made by the legislature, and they certainly can. So, yeah, to your question, John, absolutely, they could do anything they want, but you're just moving money around. I mean, that you still, okay, well, we'll take it away from transportation. And then the transportation comes back and says, okay, guys, you need to cut us a check for $100 million every year. So you can either cut a check to transportation or $200 million is what this is, or you can give it to PERS. You're not really solving a problem. Literally taking it out of one pocket and putting it in another, leaving the other one without any money in it is one way to look at it. We got a break right now. It's top of the hour. The afternoon portion of Middays comes up after Fox News and SuperTalk News. Stay with us.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays. We're in the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday, y'all.
Yes, indeed, it is. So, CC in Sanatobia says, I'm just astonished Trump thinks he can trust what Putin says in person. I think the president knows that. He's aware that Putin is a prolific liar and cannot be trusted, and I'm quite certain a man that has had the sort of experience he has negotiating high-dollar deals, complex deals, he knows what he's dealing with. He understands, and whatever Putin commits to, I feel quite certain the president will also attach conditions to that, and if those conditions aren't met, and there'll be some dates. That's typically an important data point as well associated with any kind of agreement, that there'll be consequences. And I feel pretty certain Trump will say there'll be hell to pay, Vladimir, if you don't comply and adhere to the terms of this agreement, whatever that may be. So I'm confident, CC, he'll handle this in the best interest of the country and the world. Also, he says, CC, just because something is more efficient does not mean it is better for humanity. A wise person once said, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. I think those are different, honestly. Those are mutually exclusive concepts. So give me an example of where something that's more efficient is not better for humanity. I mean, I have to think about that. And, of course, you could get into the weeds about defining efficient. That's probably where there's a distinction here. So I can say this, that
first thing that comes to mind, social media.
Well, I don't know that
it's a lot more efficient in getting information to the masses, but it's not really good for your psyche to spend all your time doom scrolling.
Well, but that, right, I would say that calls into question whether or not getting more information to the masses is a worthy goal. So the efficient aspect of that, you're right. I get it. Certainly, it's more efficient, but there are downsides of that as well. But that's because, like any innovation, any technology in particular, and by the way, if you go out, and I've actually done this, you go out and look at the origins of the word technology from the Greeks, which a lot of our language, of course, originates from ancient Greek language. And it really just means making something better. I think we normally think about technology meaning computers. That's at the heart of whatever new technology is. There's these machines, these devices. And that's not actually the original derivative in the original definition of the word. Techno in Olegia or something like that. There's two words put together, as I recall, Rhino, from the Greek language that make the word technology.
Yeah, techna and logia.
Okay, right. And they both mean something separate, but when combined, they kind of are used to define what we think of as technology. Can you see that, what techno and logia?
Techna is an art or a craft, and logia, I believe, is expertise or authority.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, again, it doesn't have to be computers. And what we think about today is electronic devices and all that entails. It's just anything that is creative, comes from humans, that addresses issues, makes things better, improves. So that comes in a lot of forms. That could be something that's manual. You could say that, if you're doing some sort of manual task and through the years, humans have figured out better ways of performing those manual tasks. That's technology. That's the application of human creativity. That's the one thing, by the way.
It's very similar to how culture and society view the word machine versus the origin of the word and the definition. Like, remember in school learning about simple machines, like the wheel and the lever and the inclined plane, and then you put the inclined plane around a cylinder and you got a screw and put two inclined planes together and you got a way, like simple machines. But people think of a machine as being a complex set of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're not thinking down to that base layer of, no, a machine is really just something there to help you apply or exact force.
Yeah. So the one thing that AI cannot replace, and it requires a little nuanced explanation, but it can't replace human creativity. Now, you could say, well, I could throw it a prompt in there, it comes up with all kinds of stuff. No, somebody's already created what it did. It may combine all of that somehow, aggregate it, right? Filter it, scrub it, analyze it. But somewhere along the line, some human came up with whatever, you know what I'm saying?
It's derivative.
Yeah. But it's not creating anything new in that respect. And whatever it does create new, it's because of something humans already created that it used to do that.
Yeah, like, for example, pop culture art, Andy Warhol with the paintings of soup cans or the paintings of Marilyn Monroe. You can get AI to make you something that looks like an Andy Warhol pop art.
Yeah.
But the AI did not come up with the idea of turning pop culture into art.
That's a great example. Agree. Totally agree. So that's the thing to keep in mind. But can creators use the technology to improve and enhance their creativity?
Oh, yeah.
Speed it up, mainly, right? The main value is that. So one of the keynotes, I'll give you an example, was from, I think this individual may be like the chief AI officer at Deloitte & Touche. That's the largest accounting and consulting firm in the world. They're big four. Deloitte & Touche is one of them. 450,000 employees worldwide. So he started talking about, and he showed on at the keynote on the big screens there, some application use cases of AI in HR. So you think about scrubbing resumes when you're hiring people all over the world, right? Thousands of people. It's not that humans can't do that, but, prompting the tool with some information to filter through millions of resumes from all over the world and return something that's actionable, that can be used in making decisions and going to the next step. Staffing projects. Man, I remember this when I was working there at the big four firms, big eight back then, 40 years ago. You're looking for someone with particular expertise to be assigned to a project that had a need for that expertise. And all the offices, when I was at Arthur Andersen, kept a skills inventory. It was paper. It was 3-ring binders. And so if you were looking for somebody, and they also kept an inventory. Got to remember, this is before we had all these networks and computers we have today where it was easy, yeah. But you'd have to write like a case study, an engagement study, I think is what they called it, that would have all the kind of to a format. And so you'd have someone in one office across the world that had an opportunity with a client, and they're looking for that expertise within this global firm. They start calling people on the telephone who flip through that book. That's pretty dang inefficient. And it's subject to human error. So one of the things that Deloitte...
That's where the term Facebook came from.
That's exactly right. So one of the things that Deloitte and Touche guy talked about is how they use it for staffing. Okay, I've just sold a project. I need people with these skills, and I'm going to go scrub the skills and the experience of 450,000 people. Because the one thing I learned about working for those firms in those days, you didn't work in an office and you weren't assigned to work that's within driving distance. You went wherever they told you. You signed up for that. So it wouldn't be unusual if you had certain specialized expertise to be pulled from your office and sent around the world to a project. Well, that's the way those firms operate. That's their business model. And that's a simple case, honestly, relative to the power of these tools. But again, it's not anything humans can't do, but think of the time. We're talking about split seconds it comes back. Yeah, here are all the people. Okay, narrow it down. And then you can do, about this, what's called meta prompting, which says, hey, make my prompt better. That's why companies are paying a lot of money to prompt engineers, right, that know how to structure those prompts to optimize the output. That's worth a lot of money. Rather than you fumbling around, well, that's not exactly what I'm looking for. Let's do this. Those prompt engineers understand.
Yeah, the simplest way to explain a prompt engineer is as a translator between you and the AI. It's like you trying to talk to somebody in a different language. You have to have the translator between you for the conversation to flow.
It's a great explanation. I just think all this is exciting. I get fired up about it, as you can tell. But we're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio. Stay with us.
You got to draw.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge news. Huge news. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
How I wish you were here. We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old ground. What have we found? The same old fears. Wish you were here.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. So I was talking about this video that caught my attention that featured humanoid robots just performing lots of manual labor tasks. And look, there are hundreds of them. I just happened to run across one that was a collage, that it didn't just focus on one set of tasks. By the way, while I was out there, I did take a spin in one of the new Teslas, one of the totally self-driving Teslas. So they had one set up on the floor in the exhibit hall. This is pretty neat. And there was a Tesla badged employee with it, of course, that would answer your questions, open the doors. It's got a steering wheel, 2 pedals, and a computer screen in the middle of it, right? Well, you could sign up to do a test drive. And you give them your driver's license, sign the waivers, and all that stuff. And they escort you. It was close to a side door that was a side entrance for the exhibitors that kind of had a semicircular sort of drop-off point. And you just stand in line in a tent for a couple of minutes, and they had about 4 vehicles that were rotating. So I get in one, and it was Representative Zuber and Kevin Horan and me, and they allowed me to get in the driver's seat, and the Tesla rep sat in the passenger seat. And you literally, on the screen, there are windows, sections, and the biggest one was a map, which made sense. And it had an interface. It looks like the map tools, the Apple Maps, Google Maps, that's, on your phone. And you select an address and say, I want to go there. And then over on the left was like a columnar-styled window that was the vehicle on the road that had an arrow, like move forward. You just hit that arrow, off it goes. And it merged into traffic safely. Actually had to make kind of a sharp left turn across the street over where there was a break in the median, got in line, pulled up to the red light, sat there at the red light, turned green, made a left turn, made about 4 or 5 other turns right there in the middle of downtown Vegas by the Strip. And we went to a restaurant where we went. It was kind of off the Strip. And it pulls in the parking lot and parked as well. Now, what she told me was that they're still perfecting diagonal parking. And the system knows when it's in a parking lot, is this horizontal or vertical parking, or is it diagonal? And if it's diagonal, it won't park it for you. They haven't perfected that yet. But it shows the parking lot, like kind of an overview of it, right, from above. It shows all the lines, where the vehicles are, and you pick one that's empty, and you just tap it. Okay, and it just moves up, and in this case, it backed me in and parked it perfectly. And then you could hit a little P to put it in park, everything, just like you would on your car. But that's on your screen. You're just tapping the P. And then we were ready to go back. We put in an option for a return address back to where we were at the MGM. Hit that in. Hit the arrow button. Exits the parking lot. Gets on the roads. Does everything. Not having to touch it. That's the future, I believe, of automobile travel. Now, I know a lot of people that they're not ready to give that up. I am. Man, I just think it'd be fantastic to get in a vehicle and not have to drive it and be able to do something more productive, and it also being done safely. I thought it was cool. But it had no problem navigating the congested traffic. And there was even a car that was stopped in the right lane next to the sidewalk. It had its blinkers on, and I'm not sure exactly what it was doing, but we were approaching it in that lane, and it put the left blinker on, looked around, sensed everything, went around it, just like you would manually. So, and, guys, the thing about it is a lot of people say, well, this is in its infancy state. No, it's really in its embryonic state, in my view. All this stuff is. We hadn't gotten to infancy yet. That's what's so exciting and opportunistic about this. And by the way, Representative Kevin Felsher from the coast, he's tuned in, and he pointed out that there is a new facility, the Mississippi Cyber and Technology Center. It's being built in Biloxi, Keesler Air Force Base, 100,000 square feet. That's big to start, and we believe the campus will rapidly grow, groundbreaking next Tuesday. So this is good news. I was just talking about how we want to ensure that Mississippi participates in the upside of this new revolution. I call it a new renaissance. I really do think that we're on the cusp of that. I do know this about the efficiency question that came up. The only way to create wealth is through productivity. It's when there is an increase of output relative to the amount of human input. When the same amount of input creates more output, that's how wealth's created. There's no other way, by the way. No other way. And you could give me a million examples, and at the heart and the core of every one of those is the creation of more output from the same or even less input. And that's what's so exciting. In terms of, you think from an economic perspective, with the $2 trillion deficits. By the way, we just got the Treasury report a couple of days ago, and you may have seen this, a huge deficit for the month of July. That's on the heels of what I always thought was a very temporary blip in the road, small surplus in June. We're on a run rate again of a $2 trillion deficit this year. So if you look at extending the Trump tax cuts and then some of these other tax reduction provisions, overtime, tips, senior income, and the extent to which that reduces revenue, if it does, to the Treasury, the only way to fix that problem, to attack our deficit, short of major spending cuts, which nobody seems to be on board with, is to grow the economy. And that's what the Trump administration is saying, that these provisions are going to spur economic growth, and economic growth means higher incomes, and higher incomes, even though they're taxed at a lower rate, produce more revenue. Well, I've seen some reports that indicate this artificial intelligence revolution could increase GDP by up to 7%. Now, just for perspective, we're kind of in a 2% rut right now, have been through the first Trump term, the Biden term, and then the current term. Still in kind of in that 2.5%. 7% is a massive, massive jump. That's how you get more money to the Treasury without shaking people down for more taxes by higher rates, because the left always focuses on the rates. You know, the teacher pays a lower rate than the billionaire, which is complete horse hockey. They won't be honest with you about that. Or that we had to give tax breaks to the billionaires we had to cut SNAP and Medicaid and all these other welfare programs to give tax cuts to the billionaires. That's completely false. That's wrong. That's just, they're mutually exclusive. And that never takes into account the fact, wait, all the money the billionaires send to the Treasury is paying for all these programs. Why don't you say thank you for that, as opposed to insisting that we shake them down for more, like they're obligated to pay in. And it's the same argument they make about addressing the Social Security program. I wrote a long post on my social media yesterday, it being the 90th birthday of Social Security, and go through some of the details there. But 7 short years. PERS is not in nearly that dire of a situation. There's 68 million people in this country that get a monthly Social Security check. 68 million. And if something isn't done, their benefits by 2024 are going to decrease rather substantially by about 25%. And that would devastate a lot of households in this country that totally rely on that income. And for many of them, it's their only source of income. Ben from Madison says, I don't always agree with Senator Hill, but I do respect her opinions. I think it'd make for a good conversation if you got her on the program to discuss her full thoughts on PERS. Yeah, she always welcomed the senator on the program. Of course, she hasn't been on. It's been a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, I think, maybe in the session. But I'll pass that on, Ben. I enjoy our exchanges on social media for sure. She's active as well, and yesterday she was talking about PERS, as you well know, and I think there was still some thought on her part that lottery money was going to PERS, and then she remembered after I pointed out, yeah, that was proposed, but it never went through. The idea in the original HB1 was to send $100 million a year of lottery proceeds substitute PERS, and that did not make it in the final bill. Coming right back.
Gerard Gibert. Going beyond the headlines, breaking down the stories that matter to Mississippi. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
On the C Spire text line, do you support AI replacing radio personalities? Sure. I support whatever.
If it could.
Yeah.
It can't.
Right.
It goes back to the whole creativity
right.
thing.
I was about to say that. So that's why. But, if something like that were to happen.
AI will replace teachers long before it replaces creatives.
Absolutely. 100% true. Totally agree with that. CC in Senatobia says tech nerds aren't going to be happy until an AI robot shows up at their door, cuts their throat, and tells them humans are no longer needed. No, I don't think that's true at all, CC. And look, guys, you're just ignoring reality. You're totally ignoring reality. So you can either just say, no, that's not going to happen, and I object and I oppose every bit of that, and just wither away, or you can get on board and be part of the revolution. Make a choice, because it's leaving without you. Like it or not. I'm not trying to scold you here, but I know there are objections. I get it. I have concerns as well. But the benefits vastly outweigh the drawbacks and the liabilities by orders of magnitude. And I tell you something else. I think within 10 years, this country will mint a trillionaire, and it's because of AI. And what I mean by that is somebody is going to invent something. It may not even be a twinkle in the eye today. Using all this technology, leveraging all this technology, and it's going to have such enormous value to society. It's going to make them a trillionaire. It's coming. And the left will go, I can't say what I wanted to say. They'll go, you know what I'm saying.
Crap crazy.
That's it. I had to stop short there. You'd have had to hit the button. It's true, though. But yet, all of these folks, and so CC says, I know it's coming. I'm simply saying it's a huge mistake, but I know it's coming. I don't think it's a huge mistake. Do you want to stay poor? We're poor, relatively speaking. Or do you want to continue? Now, I can tell you this. Look, 50 years ago, compared to today, are we richer today as a society? It's not even close. Not even remotely close.
Just go look at the Harry Truman household.
Yeah.
The dude was the leader of the free world. And his house had about 3 amenities.
Think about the average household today. Even our poorest people in this country have access to all kinds of amenities that are only possible because of all this. Should we just tell humans quit creating?
We don't even have to look to the future to see how well off America is compared to the rest of the world when it comes to AC.
That's a good point.
I mean, look at people that scream about, oh my goodness, it's a huge heat wave in the UK. It's 80 degrees. There are more heat deaths in Europe than there are gun deaths in America. Just to put that in perspective.
I didn't know that. But that makes total sense there. So, the fundamental problem of humans, not talking about the country, humans on the earth, the fundamental problem has been since humans inhabited the earth. It's matching ever-increasing demand with either static or dwindling supply. If we didn't have all the technology we have today, we'd be starving. Because if we were using the same, just agriculture, that's where our food comes from. God bless our farmers who feed us and create the fiber to clothe us. If technology hadn't advanced and been infused into every corner of agriculture. The most fundamental need we have as humans is to eat and breathe and drink water. If technology had advanced the way it has over the decades since we've been farming, we'd be starving. We wouldn't have anything to eat. Now, you know the big problem? We produce too much. The technology has made us so efficient. And now that's a challenge. That will always plague humans. How do we match increased demand with dwindling or static supply? And it's only technology. And again, that's defined as human creativity to solve problems. Now, it turns out that infused in all of that problem solving these days is artificial intelligence, because the work it can do, that humans can do at a rate of speed that is mind-boggling. Nanoseconds compared to thousands of man-hours, sometimes years. Did you see yesterday that I think it's Google and IBM announced major breakthroughs in their quantum computing? You and I have talked about that before. Like, guys, this isn't just fantasy-type stuff anymore. They just announced, I believe, yesterday. I meant to share that with you. Major breakthroughs in their quantum computing technology. So what does that mean? Well, not so long ago, we talked about the Willow chip that I believe Google introduced, and you brought up the point that it could do a calculation that now takes, 10 septillion years in about 10 minutes? And you brought the point, hey, the universe hadn't been around that long. So that kind of opens up this notion that we're crossing time, which is kind of a scary thought. I agree. But I'll ask this. If you had a loved one that was suffering from some sort of medical problem that this technology could fix so that your loved one lived, would it be worth it? Isn't that what God expects us to do? Use our human skills that He gave us to do good things for man? Is curing disease not doing good things? Are we more efficient at curing disease and more likely to find cures using this technology? How could you say no to that? Do we want to tell humans, quit innovating, quit creating? You've created too much. No, because we'll starve, I'm telling you. Because we'll be constantly chasing this problem.
Or you won't be eating steak, you'll be eating bugs.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, we could do that. I couldn't be more excited, as you could tell, about this. I wish I were 20 years younger, man. It's just, I'm sort of jealous of people. And walking around this event, I mean, I was among the oldest. Not many people my age at events like this. They're gone to retire, and that's fine. God bless them. And I could do the same thing, but I'm so intrigued by this stuff. And I see all these young people, and they're just so energetic, so enthusiastic, so articulate about in talking to these exhibitors and them discussing their solutions. It's just incredible. Like, I wouldn't even have thought that's a problem, but it is. Like the naval procurement thing.
Well, the problem is, and it goes back to what you were talking about, do we have any liveries around? The same people poo-pooing on AI today would be the same people when the car came out were taking their horse to town and complaining it takes too long. I got to feed this thing. I got to make sure it's taken care of. And it takes me forever to get from A to B. But don't you dare put me in one of them horseless carriages.
Well, I've talked about pilotless airplanes that Boeing is testing right now. Because they say, see the supply and demand thing? Guess what? Our military, we ain't turning out pilots like we used to. That's where most of them come from that fly commercial aircraft. But guess what? Air travel is increasing significantly. So that's a supply and demand problem. More people, more airplanes, not enough pilots to fly them. Boeing knows that. Other aircraft manufacturers do. So they're testing pilotless airplanes. Now, current generation of people, you get on an airplane, you look towards the cockpit, and there are no people up there, you'd say, I ain't getting on this thing. There's no people up there. Future generations, if they got on the airplane and there were human pilots in the cockpit, they'd say, I'm not getting on this thing. There are humans flying it. Right? So we can't.
And in the meantime, you'll have mostly pilotless planes with one dude sitting in the jump seat.
That's exactly right.
Wrong.
That's exactly right. Totally right. And we have autonomous vehicles like that now, commercial trucks, as an example. But again, like I said, we're in the embryonic stage of this. And I just think, so all these companies creating all these solutions are also creating all these new categories of jobs that didn't even exist 3 years ago. That's how humans will thrive and flourish in this new era. That's how. And it's a phase-in thing. The software developer of the education software company that I met with, it was so cool. It's called Strong Mind, by the way. That's the name of the company. He shared with me that he had 150 developers, software developers. He now has 50, producing more than ever. That's how you produce wealth. It's not that we don't need developers. We need developers that know how to use the tools to develop software, right? Prompting the tools to create code is pretty hard. It's just that rather than the tedious aspect of writing the code and getting it wrong and having to deal with it, you're simply learning how to prompt to write the code. Coming right back with the final segment.
On November 4th, Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Wild thing, I think I love you. But I wanna know for sure. So come on and hold me tight. I love you.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. Look, there's text on here. There are people that object to this. That's fine, folks. Really, you and I, we just see it differently. I couldn't be more excited. And everybody tends to dwell on the negative. They find one or two negative things out of 8 billion positive things, and that's what they hone in on. The next generation.
That horseless carriage is loud compared to my horse.
The next generations are going to think totally different about this. What many in our generation, because we're resistant to change. It's just human nature. We don't like change. And here's the thing to keep in mind. You know the only constant in life? Change. That's the only constant. Embrace change. Embrace it. Now, there's some things that are timeless, and they need to remain constant, and they are at the foundation of all this. That doesn't mean you can't embrace change. Fortunately, we have a president that understands this, and is all in on this, and is creating... Like with the crypto regulation, for example. He gets it. You've seen that the last few days, right? Through the roof. He gets it. Like the need for data centers and the need for power that are required to operate them. Going into other countries that have data center and technology and AI initiatives and asking them to make investments here, like in Qatar. What does he get, $500 billion commitment out of them? To invest in this country on AI technology because they're loaded with cash. He says, the president says, hey, why don't you do that in the U.S.? Oh, okay, Mr. President. All he did was ask. Something that the prior guy never understood. It's always about what government laws and policies can I enact to screw people over? So, Karen in Oxford, I hear you. It said big tech would like nothing more than to control everything and everyone. They just got done showing us that. They did? That's what they want. No, they want to make money. They want to serve society and make money. I come from tech. I don't know if I'd call it big tech. I've represented, partnered with so-called big tech. I spent a career doing that. All I wanted to do was help organizations. We didn't deal with individuals, but organizations get better, make more money by being more productive, improving morale amongst their ranks because they had tools to make them more efficient. It allowed them to make more money, improving their interaction with customers. And by the way, everybody has customers. Even nonprofits have customers. You're shaking your head. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
That's why they have to throw galas.
Right. Everybody. For-profit, profit, government, everybody serves someone else.
But there's a shockingly large percentage of the population that either they refuse to understand or they are incapable of comprehending that in most cases you have to spend money to make money.
Totally true. So I don't know that there's any tech. And so I got to ask you, though, Karen, you used a bunch of big tech sending that message. And you know what I'm talking about. Behind the scenes, there's a massive amount of technology just to allow you to type a character and hit a button and send it so that we can read it on that screen right there. Massive amount. Tens of thousands of jobs behind the scenes. Creating, building, implementing, supporting, maintaining, upgrading. Never ends. That's why we call it life cycle. Anytime you buy technology, we always had to show a customer, this is a life cycle cost. You think you buy it and you put it in a drawer and you're through? No. You're just starting. I used to say it's like buying a horse or a boat. You think you're done when you've bought the horse or the boat? No, your expenses are just starting. If we can make you more efficient in that. And the fact is, how could you look at all these amenities, as you call it? Think about just simple terms, your relationship with your bank. You want to know your bank balance in the old days? You had to go stand in line, and they'd write it down on a piece of paper. It'd be 6 tellers sharing one screen. Or, before then, they'd call on the telephone. I remember that. Can you look up Mr. Gibert's bank balance? Hold on a second. They get there with somebody else. Okay, when's that going to happen? 10 minutes later, they write down a piece of paper. And that's a simple case right there. You can transact your whole life in the palm of your hand now, so you can do things more creative, more productive to serve society. I think that's what God wants us to do. That's why He gave us this brain and these other abilities that we have. And the differentiation between us and animals is this ability to create. We're out of here today, back with you on Monday. Stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.